Let's talk some Tee Martin. Tee Martin is a coach, as you know, a former Vol. He is with the Baltimore Ravens. He has had a very successful career, bounced a little bit from place to place, kind of got caught up in all that Southern California mess. And he is part of the first, we believe, all African American quarterback room from players to coaches. So assistant coaches, quarterbacks coach Kerry Dixon, quarterbacks coach Tee Martin, quarterback Tyler Huntley, quarterback Lamar Jackson, quarterback Josh Johnson. It's incredibly cool, but it brings up the question of Tee Martin. Will he ever be a head coach? I'm sure that was his aspiration at one point. Sometimes people set that aside either because they have to or because they realize it's such a stressful job. But Tee Martin, will he ever be a head coach? Will he have that opportunity? I don't think the African American aspect of it works against him nearly as much as it did even 10 years ago. But I I think that his ability to adapt and what he did in that 98 season makes me think he would be a good head coach. Um, is he as affable and outgoing to be a recruiter? I mean, I don't know. That's a tough thing. Let me get your take, and it's brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler, looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our advertisers. That's why we're here. Tee Martin, could he be a head coach?
Let me make the case against him first, and then I'll make the case for him. So the case against him is that his stint as an offensive coordinator at USC didn't work out the way people had hoped. He got demoted before he went to Tennessee. The other case against him is that I don't think he's like a guru on one side of the ball where he has a system where like he would, the way Josh Heupel does. And I know Josh Heupel's like, that's another stratosphere from everybody. But I don't think Tee Martin is going to be like this offensive coach calling plays and developing the game plan and then letting the defense run the show like a Lane Kiffin or anything like that. The case for Tee Martin, one, at USC, he did win a Pac-12 title and win the Rose Bowl one year. And we know that it was just a disastrous situation. Clay Helton was fired after Tee Martin left. Two, Tee Martin is actually one of the best receivers coaches that college football ever saw. He made great receivers in college football. Three, he actually is a really good recruiter. He coached in high school in Georgia for a little while, so he's got really good connections. Tee Martin could absolutely recruit. And one of the things that I give Tee Martin credit for, and this is for...
I thought you were making a case against.
Now I'm making it for. Sorry,
okay.
I started against. Now I'm going for.
Okay.
And for, and the biggest one, he's got like a Zen-like patience to him. We talked about that with Heupel earlier, where I think this helped the 98 team versus the 97 team, whereas Peyton was so all on you all the time, and Tee Martin was much more relaxed when things were not going as well. And I think that Zen-like patience is much more effective for a head coach than like, again, like a Peyton Manning or a Michael Jordan who would be more like Steve Spurrier as a head coach. They would throw their visor down every play.
You have to be the rock. You have to steady the ship. And I think that's what Tee Martin, that's the kind of coach that he would be. And Tee Martin too, he played under David Cutcliffe. I mean, that's a great, fundamentally solid offensive mind. Maybe not exotic like a Josh Heupel, but he picked up a lot of that. So I think that would greatly help. Portions of the program brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. One of the biggest memorabilia shops in the Southeast. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia updates. Again, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN, if you go to Facebook. Now, impossible question to answer. Would he be successful?
I think he would be successful kind of in a former way. He would have to get the right staff around him, and where he could actually then go recruit, be the CEO, and kind of be the, like you said, calming of the ship. The question, I don't know how long that can last. I'll tell you this. If Tee Martin took a job at Georgia or Alabama, I think he'd be successful because, Dave, as you know, You can do that at Georgia and Alabama or at a Miami or Florida where all you have to do is focus on recruiting. I think at Tennessee might be a little bit trickier because you can't just fall out of bed and get a top 5 class at Tennessee. You can fall out of bed and get a top 15 class at Tennessee, but you can't fall out of bed and get a top 5 class at Tennessee.
Lance says T was the most important player UT ever signed out of the state of Alabama. Do you agree with that?
Oh, wow, over Condredge Holloway himself? Wow.
That's the first name that came to mind. Condredge was more important from a social perspective, being the first black quarterback in the history of the SEC. But impact on the field, if Tee Martin isn't willing to wait another year, when Peyton Manning says he's coming back, if he's not willing to come to Tennessee behind Peyton Manning in the first place, if he doesn't come through in 98 the way he did, his willingness to take slightly adapted playbook that wasn't as aggressive as it was with Peyton Manning, they don't win a national championship. So I would have to say that, yes, he's the most important player UT ever signed out of the state of Alabama. I would have to say that, and that's not a knock on Condredge and Condredge Holloway's big week with the throwback jerseys. But yes, I would have to say that's Tee Martin.
And if Tee Martin were to become a head coach one day and become successful, I don't think there's a football figure alive who would have a better movie to be made about him than Tee Martin. I mean, his life story is incredible. I mean, he came from nothing in Mobile, Alabama. Sports Illustrated, after Tennessee won the national title, did an expose. I mean, he's lost. By the time he was in college, he had lost like 12 friends to gun violence alone. And
I wasn't aware of that, actually.
Yeah, and do you know how he became a football player in the first place? He was an avid reader.
No, I didn't.
He was an avid reader. And when he was like 10 years old, just reading outside of a football practice in a field in Mobile, a loose ball came and he threw it back to the coach, and the coach liked the way he threw the ball and asked him to keep throwing it. And that coach got him into youth football. And that's how he got in. I mean, that's a Hollywood story if you've ever heard one, isn't it? And
yes, you would have to address the fact that he might have gotten paid to come to Tennessee. But that's another chapter to that book. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. One of my favorite lines of all time is Tennessee Sports Information wasn't making people available like I thought they should. And they had, remember those wax statues they had of Peyton Manning and Tee Martin? Do you remember those they were in the little Hall of Fame area where we do interviews? And I said, hey, Bud Ford, would you be upset if I stuffed some dollar bills in Tee Martin's pockets up there? Like slightly hanging out. I was pretty proud of that.
On the record, though, that's the least of scandals, because who cares if he was getting paid at that point? I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, he didn't get paid by Tennessee. He got paid by a Tennessee booster his junior year when he started becoming a prospect.
What?
I don't. Listen, I thought I'll pay him now. I thought they should have gotten paid back then.